Hey, welcome back. Hopefully you're ready for another awesome video review that I have for you today. And I'm hoping that you're watching these videos, that you're taking some notes because what you're getting hopefully from this is the value into it. Remember, it's always an investment. You should always put an investment into yourself because everything that you do in life, you're always learning. And even though you don't think that you're learning, you always are. You're learning every second of your life. And part of it, we just don't always pay attention to it because it's the small details in life that count. And it's how you act too. And how you think is how you perceive yourself in the real world, or in life, I should just say. So I have an interesting book for you, and it's called True North. And it's by Bill George. And this is a best-selling author as well. And he has a lot of help with another author, I guess. So they're kind of co-op or working together as authors. But if you ever know, depends on how young you are, how, what age limit. We have, you ever see a compass like this, right? And so we have north, south, east, west. And I think how you remember the directions is, or the bearings is, never eat soggy waffles or something like that, right? But it's not really about that. They're just showing you a compass that kind of reconciles, or not just say reconciles, but kind of as an example what they're trying to talk about. And they're saying true north. Okay, so very interesting book, and it is kind of it's there. It's a lot of pages to read, and there's a lot of in-depth material, but it's only about 230 pages, so it's not very. I mean, it depends on how you read, but there's a lot of good in-depth material, and it's pretty big font, so it doesn't last a long time, but it does take some time to read and absorb the information. So let's go ahead and talk about this a little bit. I have some stuff to share you in the book. You have this compass that points, right? And in life, I think the problem is that we have this internal compass, but we don't know which way to go. And I think that might be the problem because we don't have maybe enough people to tell us where do we need to go and give us some direction, because everybody in life needs a little bit of direction. It doesn't matter who you are or what you have. It really depends on what direction you want to go in life. And so it really determines when you're very young. And it's really problematic when you don't know. And so what I mean by that, let's say that you want a direction that, I want the good life, right? I want to be healthy. I want to be supportive. I want to have money. I want to have love, relationships. Okay, well, there's a direction there. Okay, go. Nobody's really going to show you that because guess what? Nobody has that perfect, because maybe they sacrifice, or not sacrifice, maybe they have problems in a certain area. Maybe they're so smart, but they lack people skills. Maybe they have lots of money, but they lack relationship skills. They lack love. And that comes with time. It also comes with experience, and also comes with how you're thinking about it. So there's some handicaps, I think you want to call that. I think might be a handicap, or areas that need work. Anyway, so on this concept of this compass in this book, in the book, they talk about your true north is based on what most is important to you. And he says that what do you cherish the most? What do you value the most in your life? And what are you passionate about? What motivates you? And those are very hard words to describe and maybe define for yourself too, because what the heck is motivation? Well, if you saw my other videos, I do talk about motivation to a certain extent. Do I agree with that? There's some things, but it's very hard. And it's the source of satisfaction in your life. So what he's talking about is that what's most important to you, what do you cherish and values, what passionates you, what motivates you, and really how do you get the satisfaction from that? I think that's kind of what they're trying to talk about, the true north. Because you can go in a northern direction, but you might not have all the things we just talked about. Very interesting thing. And part of it, when you get too far off track, your internal compass, maybe your brain or your heart, tells something is going on. something's wrong. So maybe in 25 years, you're thinking, "Ooh, I've done all this, but I just have this doubt in my mind that I'm not on the right track I should be on." We all do that. We all kind of get depressed in a way. We don't might not admit it, but a lot of us get depressed because we don't think that we're following our true north, or our direction that maybe we set for ourselves. And so you have to kind of reorient yourself a little bit. And orientation means people have a midlife crisis. Sometimes a midlife crisis maybe resets that. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe people in your life that resets that orientation. Losing a job, sometimes losing a job can be good. It can, because it gives you a little bit of fire under your butt to go start something new that you always wanted to do. So firing sometimes is good. Depends on how you view it. Remember, it's how you perceive something that makes it the way it is. Do we always forget that? Of course we do. We don't always think of that stuff. How our perception plays with our minds. So what you're kind of talking about is how you lead yourself and lead other people maybe that want to come with you. And leadership is always a big issue these days, because who do we want to follow? Who do we want to believe? And sometimes those leaders, they fall down too, and they might not get back up, and they might just forgive up and don't do anything. So people are kind of shaped almost in a cookie cutter fashion. They think that, okay, if this is a cookie cutter person, that's all they have in life. There you go. We're not always that way in cookie cutter shape. We have to orientate the cookie cutter. Hey, that's kind of nice, huh? Got that for myself. So sometimes everything is not black and white. There is some gray areas that we don't know where to go. So our compass is pointing in a direction, but maybe our compass wants to veer off a little bit. And sometimes you can veer off a little bit because that's the goal in life. Maybe that's the purpose in life. And so we do that all the time. We second guess ourselves. We make a decision in life like, well, is this working for me? And people grow apart and they change their thinking a little bit. And maybe that's what marriages do. I don't know. We always say, well, oh, marriage didn't work out because they've grown apart. What do you mean they grew apart? They just didn't have the right values. They just lost themselves. They were doing things and their compass was in a different direction. So obviously they're going to split. And it takes sacrifices. It takes some orientation. So if you think about leadership, and being an effective person takes a lot of responsibility. And that responsibility is not always there. You have to build on that responsibility. You have to kind of say, well, I'm responsible. No, you have to do little things to put into that mindset, into that category of being responsible. For example, if you want to leave your daughter to a babysitter, that babysitter has a lot of responsibilities that they have to take care of. When you're a parent, you got to take care of that. When you have a job, you got to take care of what your job is. When you're an actual person, you got to take care of yourself. You got to bathe and you got to change. You got to get haircuts. You got to brush your teeth. That's a responsibility that internally that you're responsible for yourself. Nobody else is going to do it. Maybe there could be somebody else to do it, but you got to pay them. And, that's just how it goes, I guess. So it's your own development that goes into this too. And it's your journey to be this, they call it an authentic leader. Authentic leader. And what an authentic leader is that you're kind of going down to the roots of that. And that's, very hard because the effectiveness is becoming to the capability of producing your desired results and the ability to produce these desired outputs. And that's what becomes a leader or a role model in life, is that you're trying to look for somebody that kind of does that before. So you kind of want to put your compass in their direction. And sometimes the needle of the compass can, orientate itself too. And you got to be careful with that because it's with impression too. And maybe what you're expecting in the outcome over the many years is not what you expect in the outcome. And so you kind of lose that. And I think that's kind of what people do sometimes, is that they have their compass in that direction, but all of a sudden they get kind of mistreated, and maybe something else happens. They lose that respect value of that person they're trying to follow, and then the pieces fall apart. The glue comes undone. And so it's like, to learn this stuff is that you have to kind of stand on the shoulders of giants in your life. There's a book about this. It's about Stephen Hawking, real known physicist, and he died a long time ago. I forgot when he died, but he's in the wheelchair and glasses, very smart person. And he says, you want to learn something, you have to kind of stand on the shoulders of giants, because they're the people that did it before, and you're mentoring them. I mean, that's kind of what all these books are that I preview. It's like these the people that kind of showed what they have shown, and then what they're following, or what comes down from there. That's like passed down information. Sometimes it works, sometimes it's not, and sometimes it doesn't go in the way that we perceive. And so it's like, why do you want to follow these leaders or these role models, and you want that compass to point in that direction because they're leading you in that direction? You want to go in that direction, maybe. And it's kind of like, why do those leaders that you're following lose their way? And so maybe they lose their way because their motivation is they went decline. They don't have that drive anymore. They lost it somehow. And maybe something happened. Maybe something down the line happened in their life, and they lost everything, and they don't know how to cope. And so what happens to you is that I have a void. That void is, okay, well, that means, what do I do now? And we get lost. And then we have to reevaluate or reorientate ourselves to work around it. And that's really hard sometimes when we lose that respect or that person in our lives. And that's kind of where people find medication, or they go to therapy, or they try an altered state of consciousness, which is drugs or alcohol or something like that. And they try to think, well, I don't want to deal with that. You have to. Time keeps moving on. So, what's the purpose? Where's the purpose of that going? And so you got to transform. Sometimes you got to transform I into we. And we don't do this all the time. And if you go into like a Barnes and Nobles or a bookstore, there's no rack that says self-help books for us. It says self-help books for me. And I think somebody else said that before too. I'm trying to maybe quote them off that. But that's kind of what's going on. You got to think about the we instead of the I. We become very selfish sometimes. And I think that because it's a survival instinct, that's become, I want everything for me. And then, okay, I have a little bit to share. And it takes a mindset, it takes maturity, it takes some understanding. And so sometimes we got to learn the hard way, because everything in life doesn't come easy. And you might think, well, that's not true. Okay, well, how much, even though that maybe you have that viewpoint and you have everything that you need, not just want, what do you think about coming from that need? How did that come to you? To make this book, for example, to make this book, these people would have to write this. They would get the information from their brain or somebody other source, transfer it onto here, and then they would have to take that information, go to the publisher, which is Josie Bass. They would take that to Josie Bass and says, here's the information for you. Look at my script. Okay, they would have to read it over, do their editing, and says, okay, we're going to give you money to publish this book. And then take some money to publish this book. And then it's on the shelves. But then it has to be hopefully a bestseller in order to get the profit out of that. That takes a lot of work. So yes, the person might give you, but it's the work that came from this person to give it to you. I think we forget about that because we get selfish. Anyway, that's what I think. And by the way, this book was published in 2007. So anyway, you got to know yourself too. And I think it was Rene Descartes that coined that. You got to know thyself. I think it came from an older Greek person that says you got to know thyself. So if you want to look that up, you can. I'm not going to talk about that because that's not what we're talking about here. But it requires us to test ourselves. That compass is going around and you want to go in that direction, but you got to test yourself. And that's how you proceed in life. And if you want to really know yourself, you got to put yourself into rough waters. Because if everything was so easy to you, you're not going to have any experience, or maybe any you want to have that experience. You want to have it burned into you somehow. I'm not trying to say physically burnt, mentally burnt or something like that. And you got to do that. And you got to have beliefs too. And you got to be self-aware of things that happen to you. And we get very unself-aware of ourselves. And I think that might be the problem with humanization, or civilization, I should say, is that we are so involved about, what am I doing to benefit me before I can benefit you first? Okay. And so you got to know thyself. And it's like, we are an onion. We are an onion. I don't have an onion. Sorry. I should have brought an onion from the kitchen. But we're like an onion, and we got these peel the layers, right? We're like layers. If you've ever seen Shrek, Donkey says, "Oh, like layers, like an onion." But we're kind of like this, and we have to peel back these layers sometime to get to the core of what we're trying to do. And a lot of us, we put up these walls. We put up these walls. We put up these walls and says, "I'm sorry, I think I know what you're getting through, but I'm not going to listen to you." And sometimes you got to peel a layer off in order to engage. And that's what makes more an effective leader, is that your compass, hey, I want to be like that. I'm going towards that. My compass is doing a good job. So you also have to have feedback. That compass sometimes gets kind of shaky sometimes when you get closer and closer to your goal. And maybe that because you're seeing something not working out, and it's becoming a little bit harder, or what direction should I go now? Maybe there's an obstacle right here, and you're trying to work your way through it or around it. And that could be like a death of a family member. Sometimes the death of a family member really ruins a family and their relationships to each other. And our first role models should be our parents. If you think about it, parents there should be role models. And I know that when they die or they go away, they leave, it's really hard to find that. And it's really tough. And you got to seek somewhere else. You're lost. And it's really hard. So when you ever have children, you gotta be there for them. You gotta show them. You gotta imitate things for them. You gotta be that personal thing. And some people don't forget. People forget that, and then they think that, well, we're married because we had a kid, we're going to leave. Or we got together, we had a one-night stand, you're the father, you're the mother, oh, well, I don't want to be that, so I'm going to be away. And then adoptions happen, and then they lose that. And that's really sad about our civilization, that the parents are our first mentors. So you lose yourself. And so the most people have some kind of moral compass. We all have a right or wrong. And I think that compass kind of gets out of whack because we don't have the right guide, the right direction to be that moral person. Or maybe the moral person that you looked up upon suddenly died, or they did something else that you didn't like or you didn't follow. And so there's a lot to that. And there's another thing called motivation. And motivation is really just, we talked about, is that energy to get yourself going in the right direction. And there's two types of motivation. There's intrinsic and there's extrinsic. And extrinsic motivation is like, hey, I can get food, I can get good grades, I can make money, I can look at the outside world. Intrinsic motivation is like, what direction could I get to do that? I mean, I see all that stuff, but what direction can I go? Do I feel good going that way? I can get food and money, but I'm in a gang, or I'm stealing because that's all I'm learning. And if I don't do that, I get ridiculed. I get the consequences. I get stabbed or whatever. I get looked upon from the group. And that's really hard to assess because you only have that one direction, and we don't learn to go somewhere else or reevaluate it, reorientate it. And so it's hard to kind of see where that motivation goes and what you're trying to look at too. And I think part of it, you need to build a team. And I'm not trying to talk about the same people you hang out with every day. Build somebody that they're out of your norm. So you're kind of traveling down the road, and on that line, you're going to meet people at every stop. Talk to them, bring them with you a little bit, show them the ropes a little bit. Don't just give up on them. Don't just like, hey, you know what, you want to go rock climbing with me, but as soon as we're up halfway, I'm going to cut your cord. And then you bye. Bye-bye. Bye. No, that's not right. You want to show them the route a little bit. You just don't want to bring them along and cut them off. And that's really hard sometimes to find. So you kind of want to build that relationship. So you need to show people that, hey, I can be a social human being. I can swallow my pride a little bit. I can kind of be accommodating. And you might learn something about yourself. And so your compass seems to go that way. And you have to integrate yourself into people's thoughts and mindset and stuff like that. And it takes a lot of integrity and it takes a lot of energy. And you got to think about yourself. And they have something in the book. They think, think about your life as a house. So you have this house. You think about your life as a house. And with a bedroom for your personal place of study and your professional life. And the family room for your family and your friends. So your whole body is like a house. And are you kind of making those accommodations for people to kind of come into your house? Metaphorically, by the way. And that's kind of what a relationship, but it's also what we call a leadership. To see somebody is that you're doing something to benefit somebody else in the right personal way. And we lose that. And we have politics that interferes with that. So we don't know what to vote for. We don't know who we can trust. And they might make something bad or that we don't like, that we don't agree with. Okay, then you kind of seek this way. And maybe this doesn't work up here. And so what are you going to do? You don't really have that guidance. And I think it takes a long time to find. Have I found it? I think reading really opens the door for that, assortment books, and just being a good person and making sure that I'm hoping making right choices in my life. I'm hoping and being kind, being nice to people. Don't just shut them up and shut them out because I don't want to deal with them. There's a lot of people that are very antisocial, and I don't know where in the hell they learned that. It's like you're just shutting yourself up. You have to be social. You have to talk to people. You have to communicate. And you can't be behind a computer all the time and then, hey, you know what? I have something to say, so I'm going to say it because that's what I want to say. But if I'm ever face-to-face with you, I'm not going to say that because you're afraid of, hey, look at this guy or a person, and you're afraid of the consequences. That's really interesting as their mindset, people that are on the computer sending stuff electronically versus face-to-face. That's a very interesting interaction. And so it's really in how you're empowering these people to lead with you, by the way, and how you're empowering them to be a social organism. And that's really hard for people to learn. So stop being antisocial and just get out there. And do something. If you embarrass yourself, who gives a rat's ass? You embarrass yourself. Pfft, I do it all the time. But you can't just let your pride get in the way either. Yes, and we are very narcissistic, which we always think for ourselves and nobody else. You can't do that stuff. Even though that you think that you're the best around, okay, there's always somebody better than you. Believe there is always somebody better. And so you're learning from people and you're sharing stories to make you comparable to them. We always do that. We love to compare ourselves to everybody else. And I think I did a video on that about comparability versus cooperation. I forgot what the book is. So many going on in here. So that's why I do these sometimes, is that you're looking for that balance. And so Woody Allen, if you know who Woody Allen is. You can look him up. But he had this quote in this book that they quoted him. And he says, 80% of success is showing up. And remember, success means something different for everybody. And 80% is showing up and dealing with it and make it presentable. And that's the first part of it. You got to engage with people, saying hi, listen to them. Don't just ignore them, because we do that. I read a study the other day that people, working from home and stuff like that, that's great. And then people are eventually going back to work. But what's happening is that when they go back to work, they're only there for like 15, 20 minutes, getting a cup of coffee with somebody, and then they leave. What the heck? Socialize. We're not people. We're not a human race to be isolated. And it's hard because it's the power struggle. Power is a choice. I don't think it's kind of given to you, but you have to play with it a little bit. And I don't want to go off on power, but we do that sometimes. We want to stay up. We want to stay in power because you have some authority. Okay, but it takes responsibility to stay in power too, and people look at that. So, is your compass pointing in that direction, and is that what you want to do? But if that compass doesn't go in that direction that you want to, what are you going to do? Reorientate yourself? Okay. So I think the bottom line of this book is that I wanted to show you this. They have a little picture of a little compass in here, and I want to show this to you. And so it looks like this. And hopefully you can see this. So they have a compass. In the middle, they have you're self-centered, right? Or self-authorization. And then you have this compass that points in these directions and really where you want to go. And so, what motivates you? Are you going to go that way? Do you have a team? Are you going to go that way? And, maybe you have an integrated life. Are you going to go this way? And so kind of what this is telling sometimes is that you have this compass kind of going like this and what direction to follow. Am I going to tell you what direction is best? No. To me, I don't know what direction is best either. I think when you point a direction, you're going to orientate that direction into all of those. So I think what that's trying to say is that you pick a direction, and then you got to maybe have to turn it in that direction sometimes and get some stuff from them. It's like a journey. It's a journey. And I think it's very cool. And there's also, they have in the book, it's called Leadership Types. So this is very interesting. It's called Leadership Types. And I think there's kind of nice ones in here. So you might want to look at that if you bother to get the book. It's fine. I'm not advertising the book. I don't even know where I got this book. I think I had a book sale. But in the end, I think it really just matters of where do you want to go? And how do you go there? And who do you have to follow to get there? And what happens if it doesn't work out? And then do you lose yourself? Do you throw the compass away? Do you give up? Do you go into a midlife crisis? Do you go into a depression state? No, I think what you should do is reorientate yourself to say, you know what, I went that way. It just didn't work out. I'm going to go this way. I'm going to try it. And sometimes the past is the past. The future is variable. And the present is here now. So learn from the past. Don't make the same mistakes all the time. The future changes, but have a plan for the future. Don't set it in don't set it in concrete, because it does change, but aim for it. I think the famous quote is, I want you aim for the stars, but if you get to the moon, you're at least halfway there. I forgot what I heard that. I follow that all the time. And then I think that's pretty much it. If you have a review on it, let me know. If this video really helped you, let me know. And I will continue some more. Have fun.